All right, let's just dive right into this explainer on the human interaction engine. And I have to say, this is a completely revolutionary framework that fundamentally flips how we understand human development. For decades, we've kind of been stuck with these tools that want to neatly categorize us, right? Put us in little boxes. But this source material, it proposes something entirely different. It's not just another multiple choice test. It's a comprehensive systems model designed to actually map the incredible complexity of human nature. This architecture treats humans not as fixed, predictable entities, but as highly complex, interacting systems.
Because think about it, traditional personality profiling loves to slap a static acronym on you, acting like you're just frozen in time. But what's so fascinating here is this massive shift toward a dynamic systems model. The whole philosophy of the human interaction engine argues that we are actually incredibly fluid. We aren't static at all. Our traits interact, they fluctuate, and they evolve based on our environment, and honestly, the work we put into our own personal growth. Moving away from a static label and treating humans as complex, dynamic systems completely changes how we look at our own potential.
So to really get this, we have to talk about emergence. It's the foundational concept of this entire engine. If you're familiar with systems theory, you might already know this, but think of it like baking a cake. Flour, sugar, and eggs, totally different things on their own, right? But you mix them up, add some heat, and they interact to create something entirely new, a cake. In human terms, your individual personality traits don't just sit there in isolation. They mix, they collide, and they interact to produce higher-order characteristics. And yet, they also produce distinct failure modes and specific trajectories for how you're going to grow. Now, the source material starts us off with a framework of 9 core traits. We're talking curiosity, knowledge, confidence, discipline, empathy, integrity, agency, resilience, and creativity. Just to help us wrap our heads around the architecture, the current research treats these as discrete variables. But ultimately, these 9 traits act as the continuous burning fuel for your entire dynamic system. We all have varying levels of these, and your unique mix, well, that's your engine's starting fuel.
Let's actually look at emergence in action, because it's brilliant. Take a base trait like curiosity and mix it with knowledge. Bam, you get an entirely new emergent property, discovery. Think about it. Curiosity all by itself might just make you that annoying person who constantly asks why. And knowledge alone, you're just a walking encyclopedia. But put them together, you are actively weaponizing that knowledge to uncover something totally new. You're not just hoarding facts anymore. Your internal system is forcing those traits to interact, and boom, you get discovery.
Now watch what happens when we tweak the recipe. Let's keep that same knowledge, but this time, filter it through a strong moral compass. When knowledge interacts with integrity, the higher-order trait that emerges is wisdom. And this is a profound architectural distinction in the model. It proves what we all instinctively know. Being smart is definitely not the same thing as being wise. Wisdom actually requires your dynamic system to pull from an ethical center. It perfectly highlights why treating humans as dynamic systems is so incredibly valuable. You can literally pinpoint the missing ingredient that's keeping someone from reaching that next level of personal development.
And look, these aren't just pie-in-the-sky abstract ideas. What happens when you pair confidence with discipline? You get pure execution. We all know that one person who has endless confidence, right? All talk, absolutely no action. Or the opposite, someone with incredible discipline who just quietly grinds away on busy work because they're too hesitant to make a real move. But when both of those fire together within your internal system, the emergent property is the literal ability to execute and get things done at a very high level.
Okay, to truly grasp the sheer scale of this model, let's talk about the math for a second. If you take just those 9 primary traits we just walked through and map out how they connect, you get exactly 36 possible pairwise interactions. 36! That shows you just how incredibly fast this system scales up. The research actually outlines that every single one of these 36 interactions has its own specific mechanism, its own emergent properties, benefits, and risks. It forms this massive interaction matrix mapping out the human experience. And the crazy part? That's just when we look at traits in groups of 2.
Zoom out even further, and things get, well, kind of mind-boggling. When you start looking at 3 trait combinations, we're suddenly dealing with an interaction matrix of 84 distinct triplets. 84 completely unique ways your base traits can combine to form these incredibly complex human archetypes. The mathematics underneath this dynamic system are absolutely staggering, and it proves exactly why we cannot simply be reduced to 4 letters on a generic personality test. Not when there are 84 unique interconnected triplet states operating inside of us.
So, what does a triplet actually look like out in the real world? Well, when you fuse curiosity, knowledge, and confidence together, the engine produces this powerhouse visionary archetype. The curiosity lets you see what might be possible. The knowledge gives you the actual practical groundwork to understand how to build it.
And that confidence? That gives you the audacity to actually stand up and tell the world about it. This emergent visionary trait literally doesn't exist unless all three parts of the system are interacting harmoniously.
But let's say you swap out curiosity and confidence, and instead you plug in integrity and empathy. The entire dynamic system shifts gears, and now it produces a mentor. You still have that core foundation of knowledge, but now it's being filtered through integrity and delivered with deep empathy. What is so brilliant about this architecture is how perfectly it maps human change over time. If a visionary actively decides to work on developing their empathy and integrity, they can dynamically shift their internal system. They literally grow into a mentor role later in life. You are never stuck. You just change the inputs.
Now, take a quick second and reflect on your own traits. Because let's be real, every strength has a dark side, a failure mode, and the Enneagram maps these out beautifully. Having way too much knowledge without the push of action? That leads straight to analysis paralysis. Massive confidence without any humility? That breeds hubris. And what about incredible execution without the ability to just step back and breathe? That is a bullet train to burnout. Even something as great as curiosity can totally twist into restless distraction if you don't have discipline. The dynamic systems model explicitly requires balancing traits to prevent these failures. It's essentially a self-correcting blueprint for human growth.
Underneath all these specific combinations, the research roadmap is actually aiming to translate these traits into continuous internal mathematics. So instead of a discrete checkbox, like just saying you have high discipline, I want you to imagine an audio equalizer, right? Picture 9 continuous sliders representing the total fluid complexity of your mind. This creates a massive 9-dimensional state where your variables aren't static. They are continuous living streams of data that are constantly adjusting and interacting with each other.
Of course, our human brains can't really comprehend a 9-dimensional space, so the engine uses a really clever solution. To actually visualize all this, the model projects that insanely complex data down into a 3D space. You can basically see your unique point moving fluidly through different colored archetype regions as you grow and change. Imagine a 3D map where your position is defined by 3 selected axes, and things like point size and color represent your other traits. So as you develop a new skill or overcome a tough challenge, you can physically watch your point move out of a danger zone, like a failure mode, and glide right into a healthy, emergent archetype region.
Which brings us to a vitally important design boundary that the research makes very clear. This engine is absolutely not about boxing you in or trying to determine your fate. It is strictly 100% designed to provide growth-oriented feedback and transparency. The source material is incredibly adamant about this. The model should never, ever rank human worth or predict destiny. It's really just showing you the probabilities of your current trajectory. It's a mirror. It shows you exactly how your traits are interacting right now, entirely so you can make informed, conscious choices about your own personal growth.
And because it operates as a unified, continuous systems model, a single human interaction engine has the potential to power just an incredible array of tools. The vision here scales dynamically. We're talking everything from high-level coaching platforms that help executives balance out their failure modes, to parenting tools that help families understand the complex dynamic systems of their kids. It could be a life simulator, or even a highly robust research environment for psychology. By solving the core mathematical representation of how human traits interact, the real-world applications become virtually limitless.
Now, the creators fully admit this project remains an intentionally open challenge, as they continue searching for that perfect mathematical representation, which leaves us with a genuinely fascinating question to chew on. As your own dynamic system continues to evolve, what emergent properties will you create next? If you aren't just some static label, but a constantly shifting, living engine of curiosity, empathy, discipline, and knowledge, how are you going to choose to balance your traits tomorrow? Thanks for exploring the human interaction engine with me today, and keep reflecting on your own unique dynamics.